You didn't find this video, it waited for you. Think about it. How many times in your life have you felt that something came at exactly the right time? A book that fell off the shelf, a conversation with a stranger, a phrase that froze you in the middle of the street, and you thought it's as if the universe knew. But what if it wasn't a coincidence? What if it was you and finally ready to see what had always been there? Carl Jung had a name for it: synchronicity. It's not magic. It's not fate written in the stars. It's something more disturbing and more real. Synchronicity is when the outside world reflects what is happening in your inner world. When the soul is ready to awaken, reality reorganizes itself. And what seemed like chance begins to make such deep sense that it becomes frightening. Maybe you're watching this video because something inside you has cracked. It didn't break all at once. It was a slow, almost imperceptible crack, like when a wall has been crumbling for years until one day you touch it and feel it can't take anymore. You look at your life and everything seems to be in place, your job, the people, the routine, but something essential is missing. And the worst part isn't the pain. The worst part is not being able to name what hurts. You wake up, you function, you smile when you need to. But inside there's a deafening silence. It's as if you're living someone else's life. And the strangest thing, no one notices. Because you've learned to perform so well that even you've forgotten you're acting. Until the day the mask becomes so heavy that you can no longer hold it up. And it is precisely there at that point of silent exhaustion that the universe, or your soul, whatever, sends a sign, a video, a phrase, a glance in the mirror. Something small, but that stirs a part of you that has been dormant for so long that you didn't even remember it existed. And then comes that feeling. This is for me. It's not paranoia. It's not an illusion. It's recognition. The soul recognizing its own voice after years of silence. But here's what no one tells you. This recognition is not comfortable. It doesn't come with clarity or peace. It comes as restlessness. Like a question you don't want to answer. Now what? If I know something is wrong, what do I do with that? Because ignoring it doesn't work anymore. And pretending everything is fine? Well, you've already tried that. And it brought you here. The truth is, you didn't need this video to know. You already knew. You just didn't have the courage to face it. And now that you have, there's no turning back. The crack is already open. And that's where the light will come in. Or the fear that there is no light at all. But one thing is certain. Whatever comes, it will be real. And maybe that's exactly what you've been waiting for all along. Permission to stop pretending. The first thing you need to understand is that this crack didn't start today. It started a long time ago, maybe years ago. But you learned not to look at it. Because looking at cracks hurts. And modern society has taught us from an early age to cover up any discomfort with busyness. Work harder, distract yourself, produce, be strong. Always be well. Jung called this the persona, the social mask we build to be accepted. In the beginning, the persona is useful. It helps us navigate the world, not to be completely vulnerable all the time. But the problem is that little by little, without realizing it, we begin to believe that the mask is who we really are. You take on the role of competent professional, responsible child, person who is always fine, and forget that underneath it all there is someone who is afraid, who has doubts, who wants to scream. And then something inevitable happens. The soul, which was being suffocated by the persona, begins to rebel. Not in a dramatic way, not with a sudden collapse, but with small persistent signs. An exhaustion that sleep cannot cure, irritation for no clear reason. A strange feeling when you wake up, as if you are forgetting something important, but you can't remember what. Kierkegaard, a 19th century Danish philosopher, described this brutally. He said that there is a kind of despair that is so deep that the person doesn't even know they are desperate. It is the despair of living without realizing that you are living someone else's life. You function, you perform, but you are not alive. Think about it. How many important decisions in your life were really yours? Choosing that profession because it was safe. Staying in that relationship because it had been going on for so long. Avoiding that dream because it wasn't practical. Little by little, you outsourced the authorship of your own life. And now the bill is coming due. The crack is your soul saying, I'm still here, and I won't accept being forgotten anymore. There's a story Jung told about one of his patients. A middle-aged woman, successful, married, socially admired. She had everything society promises as a full life, but she came to his office saying she couldn't take it anymore. Not because of anything specific, she just couldn't take it. Jung realized that she had spent her entire life being the person everyone expected her to be, the perfect wife, the exemplary professional, the friend who was always available, until one day riding her bike home, she simply stopped in the middle of the street and started crying, for no apparent reason, no external catalyst. She later said that at that moment she didn't know why she was crying. She just knew that if she kept riding home, she would explode. It was as if her body had said, "Enough, stop, look inside. Because if you don't stop now, I'll force you to stop." And you know what's scary? This woman thought for weeks that she was weak, that she was falling apart. But Jung saw it differently. He told her, "You're not falling apart. You're finally waking up." Because that's what the crack is. It's not the end. It's the awakening. Your body, your soul, your unconscious, everything you've ignored for so long is trying to bring you back to yourself, and that hurts. It hurts because it means admitting that you've lost yourself. It hurts because it means looking in the mirror and asking, who am I really when I take off this mask? Most people are so afraid of this question that they spend their whole lives avoiding it. They fill every second with work, Netflix, social media, anything that keeps them from being alone with the silence. Because in the silence, the crack becomes impossible to ignore. There is a pattern that repeats itself. The more you try to cover up the crack, the more it bleeds. You take on more responsibilities at work to prove your worth. You volunteer to help everyone because being useful makes you feel needed. You avoid moments of solitude because when you're alone, the emptiness screams. And for a while it works. Being busy numbs the pain, but the numbness always wears off. And when it does, the crack is bigger. Because here's what no one tells you. The crack doesn't go away. It only grows. And the more you try to cover it up with new projects, new relationships, new distractions, the more it expands. Until one day it's no longer a crack. It's an abyss. And you're inside it without knowing how you got there. You start to notice strange things. That promotion you wanted so badly, when it finally came, you felt nothing. That dream trip, you were there but you weren't present. Those conversations with friends that used to energize you, now they seem empty, superficial, as if everyone were reciting a rehearsed script. And worst of all, you can't talk about it. Because how do you explain to someone that you're feeling lost when objectively your life is working? How do you say you're suffocating when no one is stopping you from breathing? It's like being stuck in a play where you've memorized the script perfectly, but you've forgotten why you're on stage. Everyone applauds your performance, but you look at the audience and think, don't you see? I'm not this character. I don't even know who I am anymore. And then comes the guilt. Why can't I be grateful? There are people going through worse things. I should be happy. But forced gratitude doesn't cure existential emptiness. In fact, it only deepens it. Because now, in addition to feeling empty, you feel guilty for being empty. So you carry on, smiling, functioning, surviving. But a part of you, the truest part, is fading away, day after day, until one morning you wake up and no longer recognize the person in the mirror. You see someone well-dressed, organized, responsible, but the eyes are empty. And it is precisely at that moment, when you feel you can't take another day living like this, that something inside you whispers, maybe it's time to stop pretending. So what do you do? How do you deal with it? The answer is not to run away, not to cover it up, not to pretend that everything is fine. The answer is something that goes against everything you've been taught. You need to look at the crack, observe it, listen to it, because it didn't come to destroy you. It came to free you from the life you never really wanted to live. But looking at the crack is only the beginning, because what happens next is even more disturbing. The crack starts to speak, and it doesn't speak in words, it speaks in symptoms. Suddenly you realize you're not sleeping well, that you wake up in the middle of the night with your heart racing for no reason. Or you start having strange dreams, dreams that leave you restless all day, even if you can't remember exactly what they were about. Sometimes it's exhaustion that won't go away no matter how many hours you sleep. Other times it's constant irritation and urge to scream but you don't even know what about. This is no coincidence. Jung said that the unconscious has no direct voice. It can't send you an email or a clear message saying, look, you're going down the wrong path. So it speaks in other ways, through the body, through dreams, through synchronicities, those coincidences that seem too meaningful to be coincidences. Modern science, interestingly, is beginning to validate what Jung intuited 100 years ago. Neuroscience shows that when we go through deep existential crises, the brain literally reorganizes itself. New neural connections are formed. Old patterns are dismantled. It's as if the nervous system knows that for you to truly continue living, something inside you must die. And this process of neural death is painful, but it is also transformative. The problem is that when this happens, most people panic. They rush to doctors, therapists, gurus, anyone who can fix what's wrong. And don't get me wrong, professional help can be essential. But the question is, what if nothing is wrong? What if this crisis is not a pathology but a calling? There's another story Jung recounted, about a woman who came to his office in deep depression. She had everything she wanted in life: a solid marriage, a promising career, financial stability. But she woke up every morning with no will to live. She wasn't suicidal. She was just empty, as if she were anesthetized inside. Jung asked her to start recording her dreams, and after weeks a pattern began to emerge. She repeatedly dreamed that she was inside a huge house with many rooms, but she couldn't find the exit door. She walked from room to room, increasingly desperate, but all the doors led to other rooms, never outside. When Jung analyzed it, he saw something she didn't. The house was her ego, the structure she had built to protect herself, to be accepted, to function. And the door? The door was the soul, the true self that was locked away, forgotten in some room she was afraid to open. Her depression was not the enemy. It was an invitation, a desperate invitation from the soul saying, stop living in this prison house. Find the door. Come home for real. And here's the crucial point. The soul doesn't speak at convenient times. It doesn't choose the right moment. It speaks when you're ready, even if you don't consciously know it yet. That's why sometimes a video like this appears in your feed exactly when you need it most. It's not YouTube being smart. It's synchronicity. Jung used this word synchronicity to describe meaningful coincidences, moments when the outside world perfectly mirrors the inside world. You think of someone and that person calls you. You're struggling with a question and a stranger out of nowhere says exactly what you needed to hear. You're at rock bottom and a book, a song, a video, something appears as if it was sent especially for you. The rational mind laughs at this. It calls it confirmation bias or pattern illusion. But Jung knew something that science is slow to accept. There is a deeper intelligence operating in life. Not magic, not supernatural, but a subtle connection between what happens inside you and what happens around you. Think about how many times you've ignored signs. That inner voice that told you this isn't right, but you drowned it out with logic. That impulse to change course, but you ignored it because it didn't make sense. That person who crossed your path and said something that impacted you, but you forgot because you were too busy. Life is constantly trying to guide you back to yourself, but you have to be ready to listen. And being ready doesn't mean being okay. It means being on the edge. It means that the pain has become loud enough that you can no longer avoid it. When that happens, the world starts to look different. Little things take on weight. A random phrase in a podcast, a scene from a movie that makes you cry out of nowhere, a look from a stranger that seems to say, I know what you're going through. These are the signs intensifying. It's your unconscious trying to reach you with more urgency, and you feel it. You feel that something bigger is trying to show you something, but you also feel fear. Because if you really pay attention, if you stop and listen, you'll have to admit what you've known for a long time, that you can't live this way anymore. So if you're here now watching this, it's not because the algorithm was smart. It's because something inside you was ready to stop ignoring, ready to really look, ready to ask, what if this crisis I'm feeling isn't a failure, but a recalibration? Because that's what the soul does when it's ignored for too long. It creates a crisis that forces you to stop, to look within, to question everything. And yes, it's scary. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it feels like you're going crazy, but you're not. You are, for the first time in a long time, beginning to wake up. And awakening, contrary to what self-help books promise, does not begin with light. It begins with darkness, with the feeling that everything is falling apart. Because before you can rebuild, you need to dismantle. Before you can find who you really are, you need to let go of who you never were. And that's the part no one warns you about. Halfway through, there will be a moment when you feel completely alone, as if you've left the herd but haven't found your own way yet. And it is precisely at this point, when you realize you are awakening, that the most dangerous temptation of all arises, to return to the herd. Because being alone with the truth is terrifying. And the herd, however superficial it may be, offers something irresistible, the illusion of belonging. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to get lost in the crowd? How comforting it is to do what everyone else does, want what everyone else wants, complain about what everyone else complains about. There is a strange security in being the same, because when you are the same, no one questions you, no one judges you. You simply disappear. And for a while, disappearing seems better than being seen. The German philosopher Martin Heidegger had a term for this, das Man, which can be translated as the impersonal, or the people. It is that invisible force that makes you act not as an individual, but as part of the masses. We do it this way. We think this way. We don't question it. And little by little, you stop asking, do I want this? And start asking only, is this accepted? Heidegger said that most people live their entire lives this way, on the autopilot of conformity. They never get to be who they really are because they're too busy being who we expect them to be. And worse, they don't even realize it. Because the herd doesn't force you to join. It just makes you feel like leaving would be crazy. Think about the conversations you have every day. How many of them are really yours? How many times have you repeated an opinion you heard somewhere, but never stopped to feel if it was true for you? How many times have you laughed at a joke you didn't find funny, or agreed with something that bothered you just to avoid creating discomfort? This is the most subtle prison of all. It has no bars. It has no guards. It only has the constant fear of being different. And as long as you are trapped in that fear, the crack will continue to grow, because the soul does not accept imitation. It only accepts authenticity. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps, wrote something devastating. He said that existential emptiness, that feeling that life has no meaning, does not come from a lack of pleasure or success. It comes from a lack of genuine purpose. And you don't find purpose by imitating others. You only find it when you stop imitating. But stopping imitating means facing loneliness. Because when you leave the herd, when you stop following the script that everyone else follows, something scary happens. You are alone. And loneliness for most people is unbearable. That's why so many give up halfway. They start to wake up, they feel the crack, they recognize that they need to change. But when change requires them to be alone for a while, without external validation, without applause, without anyone saying, "You're on the right track," they run back. They go back to the job that suffocates them. They go back to the relationship that nullifies them. They return to the version of themselves that everyone approves of, but that they themselves do not recognize. And you know what's most tragic? They call it maturity. They say, "I've grown up. I've stopped dreaming. I've accepted reality." But accepting reality and giving up on yourself are completely different things. The reality is that you don't have to choose between being authentic and being loved. You have to choose between being authentic and being accepted by people who never really knew you. And that distinction changes everything. Because as long as you're in the herd, you'll get approval. You'll get smiles. You'll get the comforting feeling of doing it right. But inside you, the crack will continue to expand. Because the soul knows when you're lying, and it doesn't accept bribes. There's a story that illustrates this perfectly. A film director spent years making movies to please critics. Each compliment brought temporary relief. Each criticism tore her apart. She knew all the formulas for success. She knew how to construct scenes that moved audiences. But one day, sitting in front of the script she was supposed to write, she realized something terrifying. She couldn't write a single line. It wasn't creative block. It was something deeper. She had forgotten how to create something honest. All she knew how to do was perform, create to be approved. And now that approval was no longer enough, she was empty. So she stopped, not out of courage, out of desperation. And in the months that followed, something painful happened. She lost relevance. The invitations stopped coming. People stopped asking about her projects, and she was left alone, with silence, with insignificance, with the version of herself that no one applauded. But it was precisely in that silence that something began to be reborn. She started creating again, not for festivals, not for critics, for herself. And for the first time in years, she felt alive. The film she made afterwards didn't win any awards, but she said something that stayed with me. "I lost my reputation, but I found my soul. That's the price of leaving the herd. You lose validation, you lose predictability, you lose the feeling of being on the right track according to external standards. But you gain something that no applause can give you. You gain yourself back. And here's the truth that no one tells you. The loneliness you feel when you leave the herd is not empty. It is fertile. It is the space where the real version of you is finally allowed to exist. Because as long as you are surrounded by voices telling you who you should be, you will never hear the voice that tells you who you really are. Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, always begins with separation. Separation from the collective. Separation from expectations. Separation from the need to be understood by everyone. And this separation is not selfishness. It is survival of the soul. Because the truth is this: you can spend your whole life being loved for the mask you wear, or you can risk being seen, truly seen, for who you are. And yes, fewer people will understand you. Fewer people will applaud you. But those who stay, they will truly love you. Not the character, you. And that is worth infinitely more than 1,000 empty applauses. But leaving the herd is only half the journey. Because when you are finally alone, away from the crowd, with no masks to wear, comes the scariest part of all. You find what was hidden inside you all along. And what you find is not beautiful. It is not enlightened. It is not the idealized version you hope to discover. What you find when you finally take off all the masks is the shadow. Jung used this word, the shadow, to describe everything you have hidden from yourself. Not just the obvious mistakes, But the parts of yourself that were rejected, shamed, locked away in some dark corner of your psyche, because good people aren't like that. The anger you could never express. The selfishness you learned to disguise as generosity. The envy, the fear, the pettiness, the fragility. Everything you swore you weren't, but you are, and you always have been. Jung said something that should be in every self-help book but never is. You don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light but by making the darkness conscious. Because true transformation doesn't happen when you become better. It happens when you finally stop pretending you already are. And it hurts in a way that nothing can prepare you for. Because facing your shadow means looking at everything you hate most about yourself and saying, this is also me. It means admitting that you're not the kind person everyone thinks you are. That sometimes you're selfish. That sometimes you hurt people. That sometimes you run away. And that on some level you always knew this, but chose to lie. Neuroscience has a fascinating explanation for why this is so painful. When you face truths about yourself that contradict the self-image you have constructed, your brain literally goes into crisis mode. The neural networks linked to your identity begin to unravel. It's as if you are dying psychologically. And in a sense, you are. The false version of you is dying so that the real one can be born. But before birth, there is agony. There is a Greek myth that Jung loved to quote, the story of Prometheus. Prometheus stole fire from the gods, the fire of knowledge of consciousness, and gave it to humans. As punishment, he was chained to a rock, and every day an eagle came to devour his liver, and every day the liver regenerated, so that the next day the torture would begin again. Jung saw this as a symbol of awakening. The fire you steal, the awareness of who you really are, comes at a price. You will suffer, you will be torn apart, and you will regenerate only to be torn apart again. Because awakening is not a single event. It is a process, painful, repetitive, brutal. But do you know what no one else tells you? The eagle that devours your liver is not external. It is internal. It is the part of you that does not want to change, that prefers known imprisonment to unknown freedom, that sabotages you every time you get close to the truth. And that is why most people give up right here. They look at the shadow, get scared, and run. They return to their persona. They return to their mask. Because wearing a mask hurts less than looking at your own face. But here's the liberating truth. The shadow is not your enemy. It's the part of you that has never been loved. And as long as you don't look at it with compassion, not with judgment, but with understanding, it will continue to control you from beneath your consciousness. Think about the things that irritate you most in others. That arrogant colleague, that manipulative family member, that stranger on the internet who drives you crazy. Jung would say that what irritates you in others is almost always something you don't accept in yourself. The arrogance you repress, the manipulation you disguise, the anger you bury. Recognizing this is not pleasant, but it is essential. Because only when you integrate your shadow, when you stop fighting it and begin to understand it, do you become whole. Integrating your shadow does not mean becoming those things. It means recognizing that they exist within you and consciously choosing how to deal with them. It means stopping wasting energy pretending you are perfect and starting using that energy to be real. Because here's the paradox. The more you try to be good, the more the shadow grows. The more you repress anger, the more it explodes at unexpected moments. The more you hide selfishness, the more it contaminates your good deeds with resentment. The shadow doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It only gets stronger. But when you look at it, really look at it without looking away, something strange happens. It loses its power. Because the shadow only controls you as long as you are afraid of it. The moment you say, yes, I'm angry, I'm jealous, I'm afraid, it stops being a monster and becomes just human. And this is where the journey asks something radical of you. Something that goes against everything you've been taught. Because until now, you've lived waiting. Waiting for someone to come and save you. Waiting for a relationship to complete you. Waiting for a job to fulfill you. Waiting for a philosophy, a guru, a method to enlighten you. But no one comes. And do you know why? Because no one can come. This journey, from the surface to the depths of your soul, only you can take. No one can walk through your shadow for you. No one can look in the mirror for you. No one can become you except you. This is the death of the savior archetype. The fantasy that someone at some point will come and solve everything, will understand you completely, will heal your wounds, will give you what you've always needed. But this fantasy is a prison. Because while you wait to be saved, you outsource your own life. And this is both the scariest and most liberating news you will ever hear. No one is going to save you. But you don't need to be saved either. You need to stop waiting and start choosing yourself. And if you felt that, if something inside you just trembled with that truth, Don't let that moment pass. Click like now, not as a thank you to me, but as a commitment to yourself. A symbolic but powerful gesture that says, I understand, and I'm not going to wait anymore, because from this point on, there's no turning back. You've seen the shadow. You understand that no one is coming. Now there's only one question left. Will you have the courage to take the next step? And the next step is the scariest of all, because it's not forward, it's not backward, it's into the void. No safety net, no guarantees, no knowing if it will work out. It's the leap. Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher, called this the leap of faith, but not faith in God or in something external. Faith in yourself. Faith that even without knowing the outcome, even with fear, even without approval, you will choose truth over security. Because until now you have lived in security. The security of social status, the security of a mask, the security of being who others expect you to be. And that security protected you, but it also imprisoned you. And now you are at a point of no return. Either you leap into the unknown or you spend the rest of your life knowing that you had the chance and didn't have the courage. And courage here does not mean the absence of fear. It means acting despite it. It means looking at the life you have built, the life that seems solid but is empty inside, and saying, I can't live like this anymore, even if it hurts, even if I lose everything. I need to be real. This is when the false self fights hardest. It whispers, what if you mess up? What if you end up alone? What if you lose what you have? It reminds you of all the times you tried to change and failed. It convinces you that it's better to stay where you are because at least here you know what to expect. But here's the secret the false self will never tell you. It doesn't want to protect you. It wants to survive. And it only survives as long as you're afraid to be who you really are. Science once again validates this in an impressive way. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself, only happens when you step outside your comfort zone. When you act differently, think differently, choose differently, the brain literally creates new pathways. But as long as you repeat the same patterns, even if those patterns destroy you, the brain remains stuck. Living authentically rebuilds the brain. But before rebuilding, you have to destroy. And destroying hurts. There is a story that exemplifies this in a raw way. A woman spent years being the perfect wife, silent when she wanted to scream, understanding when she wanted to be heard, always available, always docile, always the right way. She did this because she believed that if she were perfect enough, she would be loved enough. But one day while setting the dinner table, she stopped. Not for any clear reason. She just stopped. And when her husband asked what's wrong, she said something she had never said before. I can't take it anymore. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't explosive, it was just honest. And in that moment, something inside her cracked for good. In the weeks that followed, she started saying no, not to everything, just to what hurt her. She started asking for space. She started doing things on her own. And for the first time in years, she started breathing. The people around her found it strange. You've changed. You're different. Some even said you're being selfish. And part of her doubted. Part of her wanted to go back to the old version. The version that didn't bother anyone. But something was different now. She couldn't pretend anymore. The mask had fallen. And as scary as it was to live without it, it was even scarier to think about putting it back on. Months later, in a conversation, her husband said something unexpected. You're different, but you're more beautiful than ever. She didn't respond right away. But later, alone, she cried. Because she understood something profound. She hadn't lost his love by being authentic. She had lost the version of him that only loved the mask. That's the leap. You don't know what you'll find on the other side. Maybe you'll lose people. Maybe you'll lose stability. Maybe you'll be alone for a while. But what you gain is non-negotiable. You get yourself back. And you know what's most liberating? When you stop living to be loved and start living to be real, something strange happens. The right people show up. Not the ones who love your mask, the ones who love your truth. And that kind of love, or the love that doesn't require you to disappear in order to exist, is the only one worth having. But until then, you'll need to cross the desert. That period when you are no longer who you were, but not yet who you will be. Where everything seems uncertain. Where you doubt every choice. Where loneliness is so intense that it physically hurts. And it is precisely in this desert, in this seemingly meaningless void, that real transformation happens. Because it is only when you have nothing external to hold on to that you finally find what has always been inside. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, not the idealized version, not the approved version, the true version, with shadows, with flaws, with contradictions, but whole, finally whole. And when you reach that point, when you take the leap, cross the fear, face the loneliness, and choose the truth, something miraculous happens. Not in a magical way, but in a natural, inevitable way, as if the universe was just waiting for you to be ready. You stop looking for answers outside yourself. You stop waiting for someone to tell you what to do. You stop asking, is this right? And start asking, is this true for me? And in that subtle shift in perspective, everything changes. Because the leap doesn't take you to a new place. It brings you back home, to the place inside you that has always been there, waiting for you to be brave enough to return. And when you finally return, you realize something extraordinary. You stop searching, and you finally find what has always been waiting for you. You stop searching, and in that moment, in that precise instant when you finally let go of the search, something you never expected happens. There is no thunder, there is no heavenly light, there is no dramatic epiphany. There is only stillness, a stillness so deep that it's frightening, because you've spent your whole life believing that you needed to do something to find yourself, to conquer something, to achieve something, to become someone worthy. And now suddenly you realize that there was never anything to conquer, that everything you were looking for was already here. It always has been. Jung called this the self, with a capital S, not the little me, the ego, the persona, but the true self, the unchanging core of your existence that was never lost even when you thought it was. It was there, in silence, waiting for you to stop running. And when you stop, when you finally surrender to stillness, you begin to see, not with your eyes, but with something deeper. You see that every pain, every crisis, every crack did not come to destroy you. It came to strip you bare, to peel away layer by layer, everything that was not you until only the essential remained. Society taught you that you are what you achieve, that you are what you produce, that you are what others approve of. And you believed it. For years, decades, maybe your whole life, you believed you had to prove your worth. But here's the truth that no one told you. You don't have to prove anything. You already are. And that realization, that simple but devastating revelation, changes everything. Because you realize you've spent your whole life fighting for something you already had. Like someone looking for the glasses they're wearing. The search was part of the problem. And the end of the search is the beginning of the answer. But that doesn't mean you've reached the end. It means you finally understand that there was never a place to get to. That life is not a straight line with a final destination. It's a circle, a return. You're not going somewhere. You're coming home. And home is not a physical place. It is not an ideal situation. It is not a future version of yourself. Home is the state of being completely present with yourself. No masks, no defenses, no need to be more or less than you are right now. There is a Tibetan story that Jung loved. A young monk asked his master, "I have practiced for years. I have meditated. I have studied. I have renounced. When will I attain enlightenment?" And the master replied, "When you stop trying to attain it." The young man was confused. "So I should stop practicing?" The master smiled. "No, you should stop looking for what you already have. This is the last illusion. The illusion that you need to become something you are not yet. That there is a better version of you waiting in the future. But there isn't. There is only you now, exactly as you are. And when you stop rejecting that you, when you stop fighting, comparing, judging, something miraculous happens. You accept yourself. And acceptance is not resignation. It is not giving up. It is the opposite. It is the radical recognition that you, with all your flaws, with all your shadows, with all your history, are enough. You always have been. This does not mean that you stop growing. It means that you grow from a place of fullness, not lack. You don't change because you are broken. You change because you are alive. And being alive is to flow, transform, expand, not out of obligation, but by nature. When you live from this understanding, the world does not change, but you change. And when you change, everything changes. The same situations that used to hurt you now pass through you without leaving a wound. The same people who used to throw you off balance are now just people. You no longer need them to be different, because you no longer need to be different. And synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that Jung talked so much about, intensify. Not because the universe has changed, but because you are finally paying attention. You are present. And in presence, everything becomes a sign. Everything becomes a message. Not from an external God, but from life talking to itself through you. You begin to realize that every person who crossed your path came for a reason, that every pain had a purpose, that every loss made room for something new, and that in the end, nothing was wasted. Everything, absolutely everything, was bringing you back to yourself. And here's the final paradox. When you stop looking to be loved, you become love. When you stop looking for purpose, you become purpose. When you stop looking for peace, you become peace. Because everything you sought outside was always a reflection of what was inside, waiting to be recognized. So maybe this video didn't find you by chance. Maybe it's just another sign that you're ready. Ready to stop running. Ready to look within. Ready to recognize that the journey was never about becoming someone. It was about remembering who you always were. And remembering, truly remembering, is not an act of the mind. It is an act of the whole body. It is when you breathe and feel that you are alive, not out of obligation, but by miracle. It is when you look in the mirror and for the first time you don't see what's wrong. You just see, without judgment, without fear, just presence. This is the turning point that no one warns you about. Awakening is not loud. It is silent. It is not grand. It is intimate. You don't wake up one day different. You wake up being yourself. But for the first time, that is enough. And from here, life goes on. You will still feel pain. You will still make mistakes. You will still doubt. But something fundamental has changed. You are no longer against life. You are with it, flowing, dancing, accepting what comes, letting go of what goes without clinging to either. Jung said that the goal of individuation is not perfection. It is wholeness. Being whole does not mean having no flaws. It means integrating flaws, not denying them, not hiding them, just acknowledging this is also mine. And in that acknowledgement, you free yourself. You free yourself from the guilt of not being perfect. You free yourself from the shame of having failed. You free yourself from the need to impress, to prove, to compete. Because when you become whole, you no longer need to be special. You simply are. And that is enough. And something strange happens when you live like this. People feel it. They can't explain it. But they feel something different in you. It's not arrogance. It's not superiority. It's a peace that doesn't come from having solved everything, but from having stopped fighting everything. And that peace is magnetic. It attracts. Not because you're trying, but because you've stopped trying. So if you're at this point, if something inside you recognizes what I'm saying, there's only one step you need to take now. And it's not a big one. It's not dramatic. It's simple, but essential. The step is this. Start living as if you were already enough. Not as an exercise, not as a technique, but as truth. Because you are, and always have been. And every moment you waste waiting to be good enough, you are denying what already exists. So start small. Today, when someone asks you how are you, answer truthfully. Not with the automatic response, with what you are really feeling, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's not positive, because authenticity is the first act of self-love. Or today, take 5 minutes alone, no cell phone, no distractions, just you and the silence, and feel the discomfort of having nothing to do. Feel the uneasiness of being with yourself. And don't run away, stay, because it is in silence that the soul can finally speak. Or, if you're ready, look at a decision you've been putting off for too long because you're afraid of what others will think, and make it. Not impulsively, but honestly. Ask yourself, if I weren't afraid, what would I do? And then, even if you're afraid, do it. Because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's honesty in its presence. And if you do that, if you start living from that place of radical authenticity, something inevitable will happen. You will make mistakes. You will disappoint people. You will feel lost at times. But you will never feel fake again. And between living in fear of making mistakes and living with the certainty of lying, choose the mistake. Always. Because to err is human, but to lie to yourself is suicide of the soul. Now, before you leave here, I want to ask you a question, not to answer me, but to answer yourself. And if you feel like it, leave it in the comments. Because your answer may be exactly what someone else needs to read today. The question is, what mask are you ready to take off? Think carefully. What role do you play so well that you've forgotten you're playing it? The strong person who can never break down? The nice person who can never say no? The successful person who can never fail? What mask, if you took it off, would make you feel naked but finally free? If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You watch the videos, you reflect on each idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to go with this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life, the White Rabbit codes are ready for you. The link is in the video description. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit. And if this video touched something in you, if it came at the right time, as signs always do, share it with someone who is also ready. Because you know who they are. That person who is on the edge, who is feeling the crack, who is ready to stop pretending. Send it to them. No explanation needed. Just watch this when you're ready. Because awakening is not a solitary thing. It happens in waves. And when you awaken, you don't just transform your life. You become a beacon for those who are still in the dark. Not by teaching, but by being. And being is the most powerful teaching there is, so take a deep breath. Look around. Feel the weight of being alive. And know You are not lost. You never were. You were just coming home on a path that no one taught you. And now that you've arrived, the only thing left to do is live. Not perform, not impress, not prove. Just live. Completely, honestly, fearlessly. Because you are already what you have always sought. And that truth, when finally felt, changes everything. Until the next video. And remember, the white rabbit does not guide you out. It guides you in. And inside is where everything has always been waiting.